Sometimes social media becomes super toxic. I see an issue that arises, and polarized individuals behave predictably. Oh, that person should not have been canceled for being a conservative. What they said was entirely true and also hilarious. Or that what that person said was very hurtful about these people, and they should lose their platform as a result. I find myself stretching. I am straining to see the situation through the eyes of the conservative and straining to see through the eyes of the progressive. This results in a certain amount of cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance has been shown scientifically to cause physical pain. I live in that state constantly, every time an issue comes up, and it is exhausting. When I see that one side is not seeing clearly, I ask probing questions. For example, I was thinking about COVID restrictions and how people tend to question the science, question the restriction of their freedoms, how they suspect the government cannot be trusted. Yet, I thought that they all at some level obey traffic laws. We have to obey traffic laws because all it takes is one or two people on the highway to disobey the traffic laws, and it puts us all at risk. So, I asked the question on Facebook, why do you obey traffic laws? Most people answered from a compliance standpoint. So, I don't get a ticket. That's it. And you wonder why the government doesn't trust you to do the right thing with COVID. I'd like to think I obey traffic laws to keep others safe and keep myself safe. Gotta say though, I do like to go like 10% above the speed limit to get there a little quicker, but at the same time to not get a ticket. I might be compliance-based too when I think about it. With COVID, I trust the science because I have to. My occupation, occupational hygiene, is based on trusting the science. In my experience, particularly with toxicology, the American Conference of Industrial Hygienists does research on various chemicals and determines a threshold limit value, or TLV. It's a concentration below which adverse health effects are not experienced by the majority of the exposed working population. Governments will look at these limits, talk to industry to determine if these TLVs are practical to meet in their workplaces before making them law. Some government occupational exposure limits are higher than the TLVs, meaning they are not just looking at the science, they are also looking at practicality, because the lower you make an exposure limit, the harder it is to meet. So some of these exposure limits are less stringent than what the science indicates. Now, when the novel coronavirus, COVID-19, was first discovered, I could see that something was causing a stir in Wuhan. I recall visual profiles of chemical components of the air on Twitter showing regions of high sulfur dioxide. And the person that posted this indicated that that was signs of body burning that was happening in that region. The virus was killing people, and the Chinese government was trying to keep that quiet. I remember people in Canada saying, "This is probably overblown." I was convinced that this was serious from the get-go because of this. When the virus hit North America, I remember the NBA and the NHL shutting down their seasons preemptively. I knew this was serious. I got work from home orders from the corporation I was working at, and the government started bringing in restrictions as the scientists brought new directions as this information changed. I'm still convinced our governments have not restricted things any more than they had to because, in my experience, that's what government does. Every government needs to keep its people working as much as possible, paying taxes, and continuing to vote for them because their government services are great and the economy is strong. There is no incentive to restrict things that do not need to be restricted when it comes to health, as far as I can tell. And it is super difficult to step out of this mindset. This is the world I live in. If I don't believe the science, my job is meaningless. I like the meaning in my work, so I continue to believe the science. It really sucks for someone who legitimately strives to see both sides of everything, but that's my limit. For other topics, it's easy for me to explore, and I'm curious enough that I'm compelled to explore. I was thinking about minimum wage. I really do not understand the concept of no minimum wage. Doesn't that open the door to slavery? I've had it explained to me that the market basically fixes whatever poor wages someone is earning because no one will work for a guy that pays $2 an hour. I'm still not so sure. I really wanted to understand the root of this concept, the invisible hand that Adam Smith was talking about, so I started reading The Wealth of Nations. It was such a dry read. I didn't really get through the whole thing. But I did notice that a lot of it, went into the price of goods at its time. And it was the 1700s. Interestingly, slavery was part of the economy back then. I don't know, dudes. I really think we have to agree on some sort of minimum employment standards. But what about the high end? Is $15 an hour too much for the market? Will it cause inflation? Will employers hire less people? This is kind of why I asked this question on Facebook. If $15 an hour is good, wouldn't higher be better? What I really wanted was for a progressive to acknowledge that there is a threshold at which raising it is no longer beneficial. Instead, I just had a bunch of people saying, don't give them any ideas. Anyways, I'm legitimately curious. I do want to make people think, and I want to have conversation. I think we learn so much from conversation as long as it doesn't become toxic. Sometimes the toxicity is too much. I'm so thankful for my social media and my podcasting Sabbath every Sunday. I stop the constant cognitive dissonance and fold laundry. If I get a brilliant idea, I don't post it. I just add it to the Notes app to post later. It's time to be fed. A time to disengage and just be me without any platforms. This allows me to develop a rhythm. Once I rest Sunday, I'm ready to re-engage on Monday and work and look at my feed, absorb everything with a fresh mind, and determine where individuals are coming from and do what I can to make people think. I believe this is the work of building bridges. It's as simple as, have you thought of this? So, that's me. It makes me wonder, though, how do you engage with social media? Talk to me. Connect with me at Wax Museum Pod on all socials. And look me up at Bridge Live What. Much love, everyone.
Air Smudge.